And before Vicki does roll call, to the new president of Apple, Emily Brown, who's seated over here. We're going to vote on her joining us just shortly. So Vicki?
Okay. Roll call. Phyllis Bartlett. Here. Kevin.
Here.
Miss Carol. Here. Donna Broussard. Tanya. Here. Shannon. Here. Dr. John.
He's excused.
Okay. Matt.
Here.
Katie. She's in
She's
front.
on the way.
Okay. Angela Lee. Here. Miss Mia. Mr. Burnell.
Here.
Mary Jane. Here. Miss Nancy.
Here.
Butch.
Here.
Julia Reed. Here. Vicki So and Laura Smith.
Smitty's always going to be late. She's got a late bus run, so she should, if she comes, it will only be late.
Quorum established.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So call.
Butch?
Yeah.
Is there a second?
A second. No.
Second, Phyllis? Is there anyone from the public here? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Next item, approval of the minutes. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
That was Burnell, Carol, second. Any comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next item on the agenda is discussion and or action regarding the election of the ERIAC member representing Apple. And it is Miss Emily Brown, who is their new president. So can I have a motion?
So moved.
Butch?
Second.
Second, Phyllis. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, Emily, come sit with us. And welcome. Next item is Trish, voluntary benefits update.
Yes, ma'am. The original RFP was retracted. The RFP was experienced a couple of revisions. A new one has been posted online as of 4/24. It's at the centralauctionhouse.com website. For more information, if people are interested in submitting a proposal, they can go to the Central Clearinghouse website to submit a proposal. Just for reference, I wanted to bring up the top 3 proposers will give an oral presentation to the Board Insurance Committee and the Employee Retiree Insurance Committee. The Board Insurance Committee has been given 2 dates and will decide on the date of the presentation. It's either going to be Tuesday, May 30th, or Wednesday, May 31st. I asked that the insurance committee members mark your calendar because the board insurance committee members will decide on that date. If you just kind of mark it off based on their decision, we can send notification as to what they've decided on. So I just want to give notification if you just put a marking on your calendar for me.
Repeat the 2 dates.
Yes, ma'am. Tuesday, May 30th, or Wednesday, May 31st.
And they'll both be at 5:30 or 5 o'clock?
Yes, ma'am, they should be at 5:30. We can keep that time consistent.
If the 3 board members can get here for the 5:30, which is usually the time. Ms. Trostclair did reach out to them on behalf of saying that we needed to be on these 2 days to fall within the timeline, and we're hoping to have something shortly. That way Ms. LaBeouf can notify everybody.
Okay, well, this group always meets on a Tuesday, so if it's Tuesday, it's not going to be that much of an issue, but for Wednesday, we'll have to see, I don't know.
Okay. To my understanding, that, like she said, Ms. Trostclair's given them that information just based on their decision. But I'll reach out to you. I'll let you know. I'll send that information to you.
And this, for everybody who doesn't remember, this is the voluntary benefits contract expired this year, And so the RFP went out to get proposals for the coming year. I guess was it a 3-year contract or 4-year?
No, ma'am, the initial was a 1 year with 4-year, 1-year
Renewals.
renewals.
Right.
Exactly, yes, ma'am.
Okay, March 31,
That's the budget to actual,
Right.
the BTA group insurance fund.
right. Matt, could you explain that document? This was on the board's agenda, and I had a request to put it on our agenda because there was a question about what the $9 million was, and the fund balance is the same fund balance that Trish reported on. So I think the question was the $9 million.
Yeah, that $9 million, as we said, is the OPEB estimate for the year. So that is taken out of operational. So what you'll normally see, we just remove that from operational because it's the type of fund it is. We have to show it as a full accrual. So we have to normally, if we just show financials to Wall Street, that would be in there. But because we want to show operational, we separate it out. So the $9 million is strictly to make the number match to what the financials that in the cap are saying. But the $6 million is the operational. So it's almost like you have two sets of books. I mean, that is like so unaccounting of me, but
Unaccounting.
yes.
Love that.
We don't like two sets of anything, but you have to show it differently because without that, we would say we had a $2.7 million deficit. Operationally, we have a $16.2 million surplus.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Matt, is
It's
there
an
any
accounting
limit,
thing.
is there any limit to what you put in there? In OPEB and all?
No, the $9 million is because it's an internal service fund, we have to show that technically. But operationally, it's just an accrual. It's a book entry. It's not an operational checkbook per se. So that money is not, so it's a book entry. It's a book liability. We have to book a liability. So it shows in the financials. So for that to reconcile back and forth, so when you look in the financials, you'll see a $2.7 million deficit. So when I show it, and when we show it to the board, we show that in two different categories. So we just want to be consistent.
But
The funding doesn't come from
No.
our insurance fund.
No, but because
That's when we should.
we have to show it as a liability technically from an accounting standpoint. So we separate it out at the bottom. And we show it as a management statement because we can't show it as an official statement because it's not true GASB accounting.
But it's coming from general funds.
Yes, so, but we have to show the liability in.
I just want to make sure.
So that's why we show the 6.2 is what this body works with. So be careful to separate that out. If you go pull the financials, you won't see that it looks like this, but I want you to see that the numbers match. So to make it match, I have to put the 9 in there and note it. As we did.
so it's not a $9 million expense.
No, oh no.
And it's not, it has, I can't say it has nothing to do with the insurance fund, but none of that $9 million is insurance money, correct?
No, it's strictly a book entry for financial reporting
So
purposes.
you're just reporting a liability of $9 million.
Correct.
And you've reported the same liability the last several years of $9 million.
Right, because that's it's hard to explain. That's truly the estimated liability from, I mean, if you go back, there's like all kind of notes on this. And it's a complicated actuarial determination. So, budgetarily wise, we show it as 9 million, but for operations, it's not really part of the equation. We just show it to reconcile back to the fund balance reported.
So it's not a revenue, it's not an expense, it's simply an entry.
To make statements agree to accounting requirements.
Got it. But why is it in the insurance budget?
Yeah, why?
Because we want the number to match the CAFR. Because the CAFR that gets sent to the state has this number as 2.7 negative, but operationally, but the state knows internal service fund, so it
It's big.
it has to show that way technically, but operationally it's not. It's confusing. I agree.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it's real.
It's not.
So
It's not
It's just
real.
like paper. It's just, I'm putting it down on paper because I have to put it down on paper. That's what it sounded like to me.
Right. So I guess if I would try to have a parallel in a personal situation, you know, it'd be like, I don't know, it's very hard to describe that. To say that it's just a liability that's out there that,
I understand there's a liability out there, and it's a liability, but is that liability of the insurance fund or of the Lafayette Parish School System?
it's technically the insurance fund, but it's a liability for accounting purposes. Not an operational liability.
That didn't sound good.
I know.
That didn't good at all.
No.
It's
It's
worse.
a-
It's worse.
Right, it's,
It's an actuarial estimate.
there, it's an actuarial estimate of a liability that you would have to pay in the future.
It's not real.
Okay.
But when we look at our fund balance,
Yeah, what is our fund?
our,
6.2.
Thank you.
our
So
fund
that
balance
stays.
does not include that. I know you have to show that,
Correct.
and you come up with the negative 2 million.
Correct.
But our fund balance for our purposes is $6 million.
That's why, yes.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, no, but you're not coming.
That's an airport starting the destruction. We forgot to tell them.
No,
we were gonna
really.
get
Oh, it's Katie.
Yeah, that is a big.
Oh.
It's me, I'm a mayor.
Oh, it's me.
Okay, come in. You have a stick, and I'm not joking.
Oh.
And Katie needs to come in too.
Oh, you did, thank you.
All right, any more questions of Matt?
Yes. If it's an auxiliary account, how does that show up when we have the audit for Lafayette Parish School Board when you do your books?
Say that again?
How is it showing up for an audit when you do your books?
The audit has to show the liability, so the audit's gonna show a negative. But operationally, it's not. So that's why we make them do a special management statement that is not GASB compliant to show an operational surplus, an operational fund balance of 6.2.
So, thank you very much.
I'm scared to break the glass.
It took us a while. And Katie's here too. Katie, I'll sign you, okay?
That's it.
Yeah, I'll hit you with a stick.
I couldn't reach it.
You were very dedicated.
And
Mia, did you sign
That's
me?
what
moment, I'll
I'll
say,
say,
let's go.
Mia, you want me to sign you in?
Yes, please. 15 minutes.
Okay, next item on the agenda. For those of you who are just coming in, for those of you just coming in, we have a new member. The president of Apple, Ms. Emily Brown, is our newest member. And that's Donna and Mia and Katie. I should have had everybody introduce themselves. All right, next item on the agenda. Before we get there, Matt, one last question. If we've got 6.2 million in our fund balance now, why do we need a 4% increase when we had that 4%?
Don't bring that up.
And because the budget was showing a deficit, 6.2 is probably what we would say would be 12 large claims from zero. So with the 525,000 stopgap, you know, every high cancer premature baby can hit that balance of 525. So in our budget, we try to shoot for break even, but the fund balance is to keep us, you know, and then we're going to be discussing, discussed with, Justin spoke to me and Anthony last night about looking into, and we're working with Lynn to try to find out what a comfortable fund
Right.
balance is. So we will hopefully working on that in the next few months and have something for the next meeting on what we think a comfortable fund balance is in an operation that's $60 million. So
Yeah.
at $60 million, 6% is not a lot. I mean, that could flip on a couple of, you know, we've had some good years, but it doesn't matter. I mean, we could have some high claims as we've seen and that hits us at the 525 per hit.
But we've had $2 million fund balances and been okay, and we've had $10 million fund balances. And we've had years where we went down, I went back through, talked to Justin, we went back through all the fund balances, and it is totally illogical. So,
And we did it in March, estimating for December. I could understand if it was June or July, and then we have a picture, but it was March, y'all. You're looking at 3 months, and now, and listen, retired people, they weren't happy. I don't know about everybody else, but they were not happy.
well, so when you all look at what an adequate fund balance should look like, so we get some stability and don't have to do, you need to also, I would think, look at a cap. Because we don't want to get another $10 million fund balance and have all this premium money sitting there that doesn't get used or gets used elsewhere. So we don't want that to happen either. So I imagine you have to come up with a fund balance that also has a cap to it, so you're not going to end up again with $10 million sitting there that we're not using. Because we had one, I can't remember what year it was, but we went from 10 million down to 6 million down to 3 million, I think.
Yeah, so you can see some, as we're getting bigger, so I think we're at what, $60 million right now? I mean, so if you look 9 years ago, that was like 36 million. So we've had significant growth, and so that may seem like a lot of money, but as a percentage of your total. So, in our general fund, the guide for the GFOA is 2 to 3 months of operations, and we have 2.5, and part of that is the volatility of your revenue. In the general fund, the volatility is sales tax, which is highly volatile, as opposed to Houston, where you have property taxes very stable. So Houston may need 2 months, we may need 3 because we're more volatile, and that's from a general fund perspective. From an insurance perspective, our volatility is our stopgap up to 525. So how many big claims can you have that can take you down? And that's where you need kind of to talk about that. So we will look
And we have
into
reinsurance for
525.
right.
So, that's per occurrence. So, we could have quite a few occurrences that could, not to mention inflation and just normal stuff. So, Lynn does a good job of trying to project that, but we do need some leeway in fund balance to be able to absorb those bad years where we're not negative. And also it's a cash, we need money in the bank. If we have something where we're collecting over 12 months, but we have high claims that hit us, we would run out of cash per se if we don't have the cash in the bank, because we go below, during the year we go below, we may recover later on, but you still have to have money in the checkbook to be able to write bills. So that's part of the reason you want a fund balance, to have money in the checkbook for those ups and downs where you may have, at the end of the year, you may have a surplus, but you may have a period of the year where you can't pay the bills because you don't have enough money in the checkbook. If you get too low, when you have a bad claim, like we did when you have a couple of years of $1 million, a couple of months, a couple of weeks of $1 million claims, and you start seeing that cash balance go to almost zero, you get a little nervous. So you want to have some fund balance just from cash flow, if nothing else, but yeah.
But we don't want to increase premiums to the point that we have a large surplus.
Yes.
We want to have enough of the surplus to have a comfortable fund balance over time.
But
And what that fund balance needs to be is a discussion on what's reasonable.
But Matt, I've sat here too many years asking for small increases
Correct.
that we could bank
Correct.
in the event we have a catastrophe.
And we talked about
And that
that
has
too.
been ignored, and then we get this hit, and it's a heavy hit.
Okay,
So I just,
we're on the same page on that.
Okay,
So
next
Matt,
item.
basically what you're saying is the 6 million probably will not be a sufficient amount of surplus. Because we had 6 million in fund balance, plus we had a $2 million deficit, so that's 8 million, is that correct? So we probably are looking around 10 million.
$2 million deficit.
Well, didn't you say we had a $2 million deficit at the end of this year?
He's talking about actuarial deficit, I think.
Yeah, actually.
Uh,
It's okay. I'm just saying.
We're
it's
gonna
gonna-
bring back
it's-
some,
okay.
we're gonna bring back some data.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine.
but that's concerned about it, but there's always money to be found to give to OPEB on. And that
Yeah.
sort of blows my mind. And it's not like, $100, it's millions. So the concern with all of this, it seems like there should be equal concern there too.
Yeah, and OPEB fund is not funded it's funded from the general fund. And from all the other funds that have,
Yeah.
not only the general fund, but the funds that have, all the funds that have employees.
But how much has come from that, from insurance?
Right
In the
now,
beginning,
None right now, but if, in the beginning, a lot, yeah.
Yeah, we talked about that, I think, last
It
time.
was like $400,000 a year.
Oh, yeah, it was more than that.
Sometimes more,
More than that, more than
Sometimes
that.
more than that, yeah.
not every
Yeah,
year,
that's not bad.
and sometimes less.
Yes.
Yeah, it was
Couple
like
of years ago.
250, it was like 250, yeah.
anything else? So the next meeting in July, hopefully, we'll have, Carol, a lengthy discussion about what an adequate surplus should be or should not be, and
and that's going to probably be a percentage because you can't have a flat amount of something that's growing like this is. So, it's just like your own budget, inflation's gonna hit this, so we were at 66 million of fund balance. 10 years ago, we were at 36 million. 6 million was probably pretty good. 6 million at 60 million, maybe not so much. So,
but
just
what
in
seems to
relevance.
happen is that we have, like now, we have $6 million in the fund balance. We had some bad months, and you all were rightfully concerned. So we do the 4% increase based on those concerns, and hopefully we will have a significant surplus at the end of this year. But if we ended up with a negative balance or no cash in the bank, as you said, there's nothing to keep the general fund from paying that for 1 month to give us time to do, because Lynn had said, I think the claims are getting better. They had gotten worse, but they were getting better. So if we have one bad month where the general fund had to pay whatever the general fund had to pay, the world's not going to end.
We have to borrow the money from the general fund.
So we repay it the next month. Or, I don't
But if we
think,
don't have another bad month, it's just, you just don't know. It's a very volatile situation,
got it.
and we know that.
Which is why I think we've never had a goal of,
And I think that's a good thing. And I think discussing the 1% a year, as we talked about,
But Matt, that ceiling is always gonna change. I mean, it's not gonna be the same because you don't know who's gonna have a significant health problem. So you're doing well today, but tomorrow you might be hit with a million, 1.5.
exactly.
So the ceiling will never stay the same, but we're projecting something that hasn't happened yet. And then we're looking at a surplus. When I told people a surplus, what do you mean a surplus? I said, we might have a surplus at the end of the year because of the 4% we're paying.
But we're not projecting a surplus for '24, and that's what the budget is. And that's based on numbers from Lynn. He is not projecting a surplus for '24.
It's only we were projecting a negative 2.5, I
Right.
think, and that's why the surplus, the 4% was put in to at least balance the budget. I think what I'm understanding is that's what you were saying with Mr. Santani yesterday, looking at the 1% and then being concerned also if we don't want to put it into effect that we do 1% every year as a get-go. I think the question was, what's the threshold? Is it
Right.
$8 million, that when we $8 million, maybe the following fiscal year, we don't enact the 1% and we monitor? Is that what you're trying to
Exactly.
say, Ms. Mounts?
exactly.
But the 4% was an order for us, we're not projecting a surplus, that 4% was for us to, basically, as we would say, if we were balancing our checkbook, to break even. And so, right now, our claims might be on the low side, but historically, when we start getting into August, and Lynn, correct me if I'm wrong, our high claims start coming towards the end, because everybody is rightfully so,
Waiting
you've met
for
your
the summer.
deductible and you're trying to do.
Right.
So we don't have the lower claims at the end, we have them in the beginning and in the middle, and then we project up on the uprising. So the 4% is really to balance us, not to surplus us. But the 1% would be to start building us, but when do we cap it to where we don't continue to impact employees?
Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, Lynn, floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much.
Good to be with you here this evening. It's always, put all these different meetings and all we're here. I know we're going to be in a different location and all, but I can't say I've ever been in a room where they let people in because they were beating on the windows. That's the first today, and I can't tell you that I loved it.
We like to be the first.
It's a new world.
Just to kind of give you set the table before we get into the actual numbers here. If you remember from the last meeting, we ended the last, the plan year at 12/31 at 707 as far as our per employee per month number. That's the average cost per employee per month. That was reflective of a 5.6% decrease from the prior year. You know, in the conversation previously here, you know, you're gonna have some volatility in the plan. Prior to the pandemic, the plans were pretty predictable. The pandemic whipsawed everything, and that you had a claim year that was really low because we had stay-at-home order, you had to catch up after that, and then what we've been dealing with that really drove the cost up was the fact that you had so many people that weren't screened and all of this kind of stuff, and we had a lot of high-cost cancers, circulatory claims, things like that. We're seeing our large cases moving through that claims experience and kind of normalizing here, so you know, everything we did budget-wise was not to increase a surplus, it was to get out of a deficit and make the plan break even. Just to give you an idea, last year, the first half of the year ran at $546 as far as your net claims goes per employee per month. The second half of the year, $787. So things can change pretty quickly. But we are seeing some decreases and some stability in the claims data coming out of the pandemic and things clearing out. Q1 here, if we look at it just on its own at 618 is the net claims right now. So I'll be obviously doing much better than the second half of 22 there. So with regard to the reporting here, you'll see our participation average up at the count up at the top here, 5781. Not much of a change from the prior year, and we'll get into the details of that. Medical claims at 8,273,000. Prescription drug claims right at 6,192,000. Total claims 14,465,000. Now that's actually a little bit higher than last year from a claims perspective on gross claims. But what's really changed in the plan and improved, and especially from all of the savings strategies that we worked on, increased rebates, increased discounts in prescription drugs, subsidies, eugenics, all of these things that we've implemented in the past, recent past here, are reimbursements into the plan have increased significantly. So you can see that just plan reimbursements for the first quarter at $3,171,000, where the entire year last year was $11,093,000, and that was a big jump from 21. So all of the money coming back to the plan and reimbursements is what's really grown. Plan reimbursements, retiree subsidies, we're at $1,051,000 in 1 quarter here. Net claims paid, that figured down to $10,242,000. If you multiply that times 4, obviously that would make for a low quarter. We would be here at basically almost 41 million versus 44,210,000 on a net claims paid. So we're moving obviously in the right direction. Fixed costs, not much of a change there at all. Your retiree premium from Humana, you know that went down a bit. So total plan cost is at $11,433,000. If I annualize that number, that's $45,732,164. And we would save some $3,158,000, which is, as we mentioned before, The summer months are coming up. We've got large claims that we'll be looking at, things like that. We've got some ongoing cancers and some new prescription drugs. The things that worry me the most about any large health plan or any health plan out there, some of these drugs that they have in the pipeline coming out that are going to be approved by the FDA. You know, when we went through the wave of all the specialty medications that we see now, all of the Humaras and Concentrics and everything you see advertised on TV at night that costs anywhere from $5,000 to $25,000 a month. Okay? Well, these other drugs coming out the pipeline are $33,000, $40,000, $50,000, $55,000, $60,000 a month. We're going to be looking for a layer of reinsurance on top of the reinsurance we have for these types of medications and therapies. So those high dollar claims make our reinsurance very important.
Lynn, could we possibly, and I know there's a cost involved, could we lower, you keep talking about the high cost claims every time we meet. Can we lower our reinsurance from $525, $545? Can we?
You could, but it's kind of a trade-off because you'll wind up paying the premium. So you look at premium versus claim and you try to find that sweet spot that's most effective for your plan and the claims utilization that you've had. We look at that at raising or lowering that deductible every year. We've actually raised it because of the frequency of some of these high cost claims. Not many of them going over that $500,000 and not wanting to pay the premium freight for claims that might or might not occur. So kind of look at a historical past and make a decision on where that deductible
So
needs
when
to
you're
fall.
looking at what
Your
a
answer to your
desirable
question is we could lower that deductible if we started to see a real high frequency of those claims.
But when you all look at what a desirable fund balance is, can you also look at whatever
All of that's considered.
variability you can look at with the reinsurance too?
So net cost, net claims down considerably, fixed cost, total plan cost at $11,433,000, coming out to an average on a per employee per month basis of $659, representing a 6.8% decrease. When we were looking at Q1 last year, same type of information, low first quarter, and then claims ramped up from there. I don't see that repeating itself. I don't have a crystal ball, but that's not really where the industry is going. We've had a lot of these big cancer claims that have kind of cleared through the plan. Several are still ongoing, but I don't really foresee that, but I don't have a crystal ball. As I've had situations with school systems where we did have a big fund balance and 3-4 months later it was gone. You know? Things like end-stage renal disease are these cancer claims. Cancer was costing us $250,000, $300,000 a claimant years ago. It's not hard to reach $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 in some of these treatment regimens and the new chemotherapy medications out there, that type of thing. So obviously real pleased to report to you a negative 6.8 and currently at 659. Funding, our funding is at $12,571,000. You annualize that, our funding's right on target with where it was last year, but of course our funding should increase here coming up in July with the 4% that was voted in. Net employer cost at the $7 million figure. Budget loss ratio at basically 91%, and on a plan year basis, we've got a surplus in these 3 months of $1,136,000. Looking at this on a more of an apples to apples basis, because we compute all of this on a per employee per month basis, you really have very little change on your participation. It's up less than 1%. Your medical paid claims are almost equal, 499 versus 496. You've got an increase of about 2%, 1.9 on the prescription drugs. But if you look at the bullet, you'll see with regard to prescription drugs that our net costs are actually down. So what's happened is even though we've had a slight increase on gross costs because of the additional rebates and additional discounts and the monies we're getting back, our net cost on pharmacy has come down. Plan reimbursements up 14.4 from 167 to 191. Retiree drug subsidies up almost 125%. Net claims paid down 7.5%. So the reimbursements, if we're looking at 873 in total claims versus 863, that's a 1.2% increase. But on a net claims basis, because of all of the reimbursements and subsidies coming back to the plan, we're down 7.5%. The Blue Cross plan down 6.7. Retiree premium down 4.1. That's in the negotiations with your renewal. And that gives us a total plan cost of $659, which is down 6.8%. Our net employer cost down 9.6. Looking at it on a monthly basis, you can see that high rebate that we got in the month of March, $2,448,000. You'll also see a high specific reinsurance reimbursement of $371,532. But you also see medical claims of $3,285,000, $2,008,000, $2,001,000, and I can tell you April's not looking too bad, so we're trending positively. Those reports are all on a paid basis. The next report is on an accrual basis, which is what we have to use when auditing and that type of thing. So this brings the money to where it was actually incurred or accrued. So some of these rebates are going to be coming into your accrual report as those months come up. Right now, on an accrual basis, we're looking at a $4.2 million deficit. At 12/31, that deficit was $5,431,274, so we are trending in the right direction. We have 2 pharmacy rebates that will be included in this report. So you're looking at $4.2 million of deficit. We're going to have probably a little more expensive months coming up in May and June. April looking good. But like I said, designed more to break even in that these reimbursements should put a big dent in those in that $4.2 million deficit. Next 2 pages are just the backup from prior years that we always provide. Page 7 has to do with enrollment, and like we said, not much of a difference in enrollment-wise. Participation remains stable. If you look at it, we're actually down 5 employees on a single basis, up 7 employees on a family basis. So not much going on over there. I can tell you that your membership is slightly outpacing your participation, but when you're talking about 5,524 people in your medical plan and it changed by 5 people, I don't think that that's anything significant for us to be concerned about. Question before the meeting, remember I always say this, enrollment is the number of employees and retirees you have. Membership is the number of people you have. You never want your membership outpacing, and I can tell you other systems and basically other areas, and you think that it would show up more in your area because you've got agriculture and the oil patch and all of that kind of thing, and those folks have suffered some roller coaster rides, economically and all of that. And you think that maybe some of those laid off folks would show up on your plan. You've had a little bit of that, but not much, and it has not been problematic from a claim standpoint. Page 8 shows the migration over the 22 to 23. Basically, your enhanced plan went down almost 3%, 2.7%. Basic stayed about the same, down 1%. Blue Saver increased 4.7%. So obviously moving in the right direction there. The Blue Saver plan has been very cost effective for us.
It costs us revenue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Doesn't the Blues, I know there are fewer claims, but the people who have Blue Saver are not the ones who are making the big claims. So, but the
Correct.
Blues,
Now, we're
the
starting to see,
migration,
because the population of it's increasing, we've had a couple of larger claims in there. Even so, some folks knowing that they're gonna have a large claim, when you look at the out-of-pocket, sometimes it's a better choice, because if you know you're gonna blow through the out-of-pocket, you might as well save the money on the premium.
but the Blue Saver is a revenue loser for the plan.
From the participation and the contribution in it versus the claims, it is offsetting some of the losses. The basic plan breaks even. The enhanced plan is losing money, but that is made up a large part from the profits of the high deductible or Blue Saver plan. Medical claims, once again, page 10. They're running at $4.99, just a slight uptick from where we were, but remember our net cost is down. We're budgeting through the budget about $2,750,000 of claims, which is the figure I used in the budget. I can tell you we're just about almost right on track, $2,756,476. So projections were pretty much on target there. Prescription drug wise, we see the increase from 367 to 374. I'll jot these numbers down if you like, but our net cost after rebates and discounts and all of that in 2022 was $195 per employee per month. First quarter of this year with the enhanced savings and all of this kind of stuff that we negotiated, 157. Now from 195 to 157. That's purely in rebates and discounts. If you look at net prescription drug costs decreased 23.8%. Total claims, once again, the 873 versus the 863. That's on a gross basis there. Plan reimbursements up 14.1%. Ms. Nancy, this next page kind of touches what we were talking about before. If you look at the last three bullets here, the enhanced plan is 14.6% of your participation, 25.3% of the claims. Basic, I'm pleased to tell you, is now breaking even. It wasn't in the past. 61.5, 61.2. It's actually ahead for the first time that I've ever reported to you. Thirdly, Blue Saver, almost 24% of the participation, but only 13.5% of the claims. Total claim cost, once again, down. Last year, Q1 was 607. Was spike. I can tell you that Q1 was 607, Q2 682, Q3 829, Q4 815. When you go from a quarter of 682 to 829, that is a spike in claims, folks. That's not ordinary utilization. So I think we've hopefully worked ourselves through that. Will we have a spike in claims sometime in the future? I would imagine so. So we don't anytime soon, but that was predominantly what we reported in the last couple of reports. There was a cancer. Of course, this particular quarter, top category was premature baby. Claims by type of service. You can see that even though some of these numbers have come down, our inpatient utilization increased some 25%, outpatient down 10%. But remember, the inpatient utilization was very low last year, so going from 112 to 140, 140 is still kind of on the low side when you look at it from some of the past. 2020 was at 156, 2018, 142. Outpatient down 9.9%, professional down 4.2%, but professional still high. I think coming out of this pandemic, coming out of this season where doctors' offices were filled with all kind of respiratory issues and all of this, and coming off of the COVID tests and all of that now working its way back to just COVID being treated just like the flu or any other illness. I think that doctor's office visit is going to come down. You've also had a lot of increased doctor's office visits because of diabetes. I think that's going to kind of be coming down as well now that people are getting that under control again. Top diagnosis from an inpatient standpoint, perinatal conditions, that was a preemie baby. Circulatory number 2, and it's almost equal to where it was. Really the only thing that went up, and not much, especially when we look at where it was from previous years, was musculoskeletal, which went from 10 to 13. Most other things on its way down are equal. Outpatient, factors influencing health. We can tell that we went from the cancer of the treatment of the surgery and that type of thing. Factors influencing health is where your chemo lies. It's been number 1 for the last 4 years. But it's equal, and it's not rising. And you can see that neoplasm has gone from 21 to 18. So positive on that cancer front as well. Top facilities, Our Lady of Lourdes, Lafayette General was until last year. I think that's just a case of where some of these top claimants fell. I don't really feel like there's anything else going on with that. Discounts are still, from a PPO standpoint, still running very high. Prescription drug utilization by number of scripts, 88% generic utilization. I'm gonna pat you department right here because I can't tell you that many school systems that hit 88%. 85, 86, but 88's high. And just those couple of percent makes a pretty big difference in cost. Although we went up to 88, we actually trickled down 1% as far as the first page tells you that we're using generics 88% of the time. The second page tells you it's only 13% of the money. Why? High cost medication. That changed a bit as far as utilization, averaging 2.7 scripts per member per month, 1.5 scripts per employee per month. Think of all of the people in your plan who take no medication whatsoever. That gets trumped by some folks that might be on 10, 12 of them. Top drugs by number of prescriptions. Not only are you very compliant to the 88% generic utilization, I can tell you your drug mix on your top 10 by number of prescriptions is exactly what you want it to be. It's things to control cholesterol, high blood pressure, all of that type of thing, thyroid supplement. You don't see a lot of, you don't see Vyvanse and all of the some psychotherapeutics in there. A lot of our other systems, you see a lot of that. I keep telling y'all how sane y'all are compared to the school systems and all of that. All in the data, folks. You'll see on the next page, Ozempic is now number 1. Diabetes has come up 41.9%. No different from any other case that we're reporting. And you've seen a bunch of this going on right now, especially post-pandemic. And folks changing their diet and all of that type of thing. Nobody ate very well while they were staying at home. And it's reflective of an increased pre-diabetic and diabetic population. I think you're going to see these numbers come down too, because we're looking at just watching those diabetic numbers and different solutions for that coming down the pipe. Your blood thinners are up about 8.5%. Anti-inflammatory is actually on the way down, 16.7%. And then when you look at the top 10 on a per employee per month basis, equal at 107, so hopefully we're plateauing there. PPO savings, almost 70%. Even though you have more utilization at Our Lady of Lourdes, it's not really affecting your savings. And why are we still with Blue Cross after all these years? It's because they have the biggest network and they have the deepest distance. 97.6% of all the claims are in network. And when we checked on this, it's all, if you were to take the Genix out of it, you'd probably be at 99.5. Okay? Cost breakdown, once again, super pleased to tell you that you run your plan for less than 10 cents on the dollar, 91 cents being dedicated to claims, and the only reason that percentage changes because your net claims are down a bit. So administration and reinsurance, very, very cost efficient there. When we look at Medicare, when we look at other plans, if you were going straight to Blue Cross and you weren't self-funded, you'd be paying close to 20 cents on the dollar in fixed costs. You'd only have 80%. If we took anywhere from 6 to 8% of the cost of your plan and we plugged it into fixed, we'd be calling for a pretty hefty increase in this plan. So although fixed cost is not a big portion of it, if you don't pay attention to it, you don't market aggressively, it can become 12, 15, 17% of the cost of your plan in a heartbeat. That's why we go to the extremes of shopping and reinsurance and staying on. Blue Cross would love to give you an administrative increase every year. Okay? We stay on the case and don't let them. Contribution analysis on the next page, on page 27 here. Employee contributions, net of employee contributions were down some 9.6%. So this next page will show you that compared to Q1 of 22, we're $1,372,000 higher in claims. I'm showing you a cost decrease. So once again, we always kind of have a theme in this reporting. Our claims continue as we grow to tick up slightly. Okay, they're certainly not as bad as they were in the rear end of 22, but they're higher than they were in Q1 of 22. But what's changed is the reimbursements are a heck of a lot higher, bringing our net cost of the plan down. So claims up, but reimbursements way up. Just on reinsurance, you've gotten basically 37.76 or $37.76 on a per employee per month basis back in this first quarter. Last year it was only $5.18. So big increases in reimbursement and that type of thing. April looking pretty decent, and looking forward to another good report next quarter.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Fontaine?
We had talked about the glucose monitors, the continuous glucose monitors. Have you attempted to maybe contact any companies where we could go directly with them, et cetera, et cetera? We had talked about that the last time, and it was thrown out.
We've been talking with Blue Cross about working with them on some more monitors that they can integrate.
Cool.
Because it's got to be able to integrate with their claim system and all of that.
Right, right.
And they've got to be cost effective. So I think a lot of these monitor companies are going to get a lot more competitive on their rates because everybody's clamoring for them right now.
There's a lot more too, because
And you have a lot more choices.
A lot more
When we first
choices,
came out,
yeah.
you basically had two.
Right.
Now there's a number of them. I think with that, in due time, we're gonna request some proposals from the various, from the spreadsheet them and bring that forth. First thing that we have to do is make sure which ones can integrate through Blue Cross. They have certain.
Any other questions for me? I have a couple, Liz. One is about the same Blue Cross monitor. There's an ad running on television. If you belong to Medicare, you can get a free, I think it's Freestyle
Libra.
Libra.
I think that's what the ad is.
and it's about
Which is
$70.
confusing because I've gotten calls from people, how come we don't have that free, or can I apply for that? It's a phone number you call. Can I call that number? And I said, our insurance does not have that. But it's some kind of ad, I'm sure it's a national ad.
Your Medicare Advantage plan does provide benefit for those types of monitors.
Just the Advantage plan, which is good to know.
But if I
And
can,
that's common for all of them. Every entity out there that has a Medicare Advantage plan, Medicare Advantage plans have all these extra bells and whistles in them, and they're gonna cover these monitors. And especially, I think they especially should because of the demographic that they're dealing with.
Yeah.
But you do not see them readily covered, and it's something that all plans are starting to address now because everybody wants them. You know, they're a game changer if you're a diabetic.
well, one of the things that, because I did some research on it, if you're testing yourself like 10 times a day, or if you have a pump, you know, you can, basically Medicare will pay for it. And there's several, there are conditions. I mean, because I tried to get one. I had the doctor just go ahead and prescribe it. And when I went through
Gotta
the,
be medically necessary.
I didn't qualify because, you know, I test once a day. That was it. You know, but if I would be doing it like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, then that's the situation. And of course, it depends on the medical condition. So I'm on the higher end, which is really good, and not needing as much medication as perhaps others who absolutely need
But
them.
in that point, Mr. Butch, you've got people in your active roles that have diabetes to the point where they could benefit from a monitor like that. Problem is, it hasn't been cost effective.
Yeah. Well, in looking at the cost, one of them was several $100s a month. Okay, so the Libra was like around 70 some odd. So
70.
it's a lot cheaper,
It's the
and
maintenance supplies for
it's
it.
that's exactly, the
That's
monitor's
what
not the problem. It's the maintenance of it, okay? Just like a glucose meter, they'll give it to you, but it's the strips that are the expense. Okay.
Next question, Lynn.
Miss Nancy.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just real quick. So I was, thank you, Lynn, for everything, and I was just, looking, I'm always intrigued by the top facilities. I think we kind of talked about that, everybody has their own choice, right? And I know we were talking about the amount of money, and I know it's just facility, like how much money we're paying to the facilities. But I just kind of did a quick overview, because when you look at, the comparison on page 18, when you look at the 22 year and where we are for the total amount of money paid out to those facilities, but when you look at it as a whole, where we are just in the first quarter, last year at this time, we had only paid out $2.5 million to facilities, and already just in this one quarter, we're at $3.4 million. So we already have pushed out almost $1 million more into facilities just in one quarter. So I just kind of wanted to point out where, and that's not the prescription, that's not the rebates that we're getting there, that's what we're pushing out. Whereas the prescriptions, we know we get on the backlog, we're already almost $1 million out in just facilities already in the first quarter.
Thank you. Next question, Lynn. Have you heard anything about the Blue Cross Blue Shield buyout? So you still are of the opinion it's not going to affect us at all?
I've not heard a thing that would alarm me to alarm y'all.
And the last question, somewhere early on in one of the folded pages, COVID was shown as $0. So we did get, Matt, the $1 million approved, correct?
The seven, Actually, it was 700-something thousand that we had gotten approved that
They said-
that the auditors questioned, and then they went and they approved it. So they double approved it and got it from the federal, so that amount, the actual amount was 738, something like that.
And that is ended. There will be no.
There is another payment this year, but then it ends. So there's another payment in the budget this year.
And I have a small amount for next fiscal year, like 350.
Okay.
I'll submit for ESSERS for the end of this fiscal year, and I'll submit a small amount for next year based on whatever claims come through.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to have the claims and the backup and all of that. And as long as we have that, and we have it coded as the staff did, everything that's directly related to COVID is coded. And so therefore we can track everything back and justify the claim.
They're projections, but we're hoping that they'll meet those projections, but they may not.
Right, so what's in the budget we don't necessarily get, we have to have the claim.
Got it.
And you're getting a lot of long COVID?
Not so much, it's tapering off. When we
Okay.
pulled claims just about a month ago, we have an estimate as to where we are at currently, and we're monitoring it as we get closer to the 6/30 for this fiscal year. But no, it's definitely declining. With that change in that emergency order coming up, that should help too. It's ending in May. But no, they're still coming through, just not as bad as they were before.
Thank goodness.
I think it's gonna slow down some utilization based on the way my wife treats me. Every time I sneeze, she sticks it in my COVID test, and I've never got it.
All right. Next item on the agenda.
Wait, one more question I have.
Sure, right now.
It's about, well, it's insurance. I think I know the answer to it, but for Trish, I was at a meeting the other day, and somebody asked me this, and I said, I promise I'll ask. But some of the substitutes, that when they start substituting on a regular basis, that their premium goes up to full premium and stuff,
If they have Medicare,
if they have Medicare.
if they have Medicare and they're receiving a reduced rate because they have Medicare A and B, yes. If they work in any capacity specifically for LPSS, sub, tutor, full-time, back to work, that's any capacity, yes. If they either have to transition back to the normal rate without the Medicare discount, it's a coordination of benefits change directly with Medicare, it's not an LPSS change. But because it's Medicare, we cannot give the reduced premium. So yes, their premium does increase based on that. We've been performing audits and reaching out to those members on a monthly basis. It's a monthly audit now. That we pull data
Yeah,
and we contact those retiree return to works or the subs or the tutors. And if they have Medicare A and B, we talk them through that process. And then their choice is to either stay doing what they're doing or perhaps resign if they don't want to make those changes. But yes, it affects the premium, it affects the, Blue Cross starts to become Blue Cross primary, Medicare secondary based on that return to work. The prescriptions would also change. You would go back from SilverScripts back to the, I'm going to call it the corporate plan, back to Blue Cross and RX benefits. Members do have the option of staying with Humana. If they stay with Humana, there's no change. Those members who have entertained it or have done that transition, stayed under Humana, 9 times out of 10, they tend to be either be employee only or retiree only. It's a zero premium. We put them in touch with the Humana concierge who verifies, I don't want any changeovers until we put them in touch with the concierge. They verify the medical, make sure their doctors are still going to be accepted if they make a change. Put them in touch with regard to prescriptions. I wouldn't want them to make a transition and it have an ill effect on them. So we cross those T's and dot those I's ahead of time if the member's even entertaining instead transitioning to Humana. Because Humana they can stay on, still return to work, and keep the Humana premium. But when it's Blue Cross, they cannot because we're the secondary.
so we've probably lost quite a few subs.
We've lost a few, yes sir.
That's unfortunate.
It's based on just conversations and their medical needs and their decisions, yes.
Okay, thanks.
And then,
It's unfortunate, it's not our control, it's
Right, it's the
dictated
CMS.
by
Yeah,
the federal, it's just not us.
and there's also a situation where they have Part A but not Part B, and that creates a situation with us over here also. I've had a few of them call and wondering, well, what's going on because I have to pay this, well, that you don't have Part B. So it's a
Oh, based on the reduced premium, is
Yeah, on
what
the
you're
reduced-
saying?
yeah,
Yes, they need
yeah,
to have
yeah,
A
that's
and
what-
B
yeah.
in order to have the Medicare reduced premium.
Right,
If they
exactly.
don't, then they stay at the for the active rates, if you think of it that way.
Now, they can get the Part B, but there's a penalty to it, I believe. is what
Yeah,
I-
if the member didn't previously have it, yes,
Yeah. I think
there
they
could be
did.
a penalty.
It might
There would
be.
be a penalty.
Well, it might pay to get them to pay it, because, man, there's a difference in the payout. When you
Like,
come,
it used to be when people retired a long time ago, you were told, get A.
right,
In more recent years, it's get A and B, but there are people who retired who just had A.
right,
So, and there is a penalty,
yes.
because I've had several people in the same situation.
Well, I had a couple of calls because of that, because some of them, that's what they did. They got the A for some reason and didn't get the B. And then, when it came down to what was going on with the Medicare, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, some of this stuff, the cost is amazing. I mean, the difference in cost is amazing.
But it's not A. You have to work to get A. You can buy B. You
Right.
have it opposite.
No, this is it. They have A, but they
They
didn't
don't
have B.
But the only way you can get A is you have to have put into the system. There are
Yeah,
some
they did.
teachers who did not put Social Security, did not put into Social Security.
Right, yeah.
But they can buy Part B.
Right,
Part A, you have to have
the
put
part
into
one,
it
yeah.
to get it.
You
You
can-
can't buy Part A.
You can buy Part A.
You
Yes,
can.
ma'am.
Yeah,
You can.
it's
It's
expensive.
required,
Very
it's much more
expensive.
expensive, it's huge.
It's
Just like, it's
Hundreds
just like
of
you can
dollars.
buy years, if you not paid into the TRSL, you can buy the years back, but the cost is tremendous.
You just can't.
Yes, we had some employees who were not allowed to buy into Medicare.
That's correct, yeah.
84, I think it was.
That's correct.
Yeah, I don't know how many there still are, but yeah, those people are at
So
a
like-
real disadvantage.
I had one of my friends, basically he was out for maybe like 4 years, and he wanted to buy it back,
Oh,
because he wanted to put it into retirement part, but it was in the tens of thousands of dollars to be able to pick, because of the actuarials. So he decided not to. Crazy.
All right, any more questions or comments, or can we move on? Okay, Carol, we'll move on. Carol says it, move on. Chair report, very quickly, I had a couple of calls about the Regenix mail out, and the concern was how they were getting a direct mail from a vendor, and I called Trish and she explained that anybody who has a contract with the LPSS has that access. So if you have people concerned about how they got the address, it is because they have a contract with the school system. At our July meeting, as we were talking about earlier, because Carol has discussed this for years and because John Downs made a written request to put it on the agenda, at our next meeting in July, not the one where we'll do voluntary benefits in May, but in July, we hope to hear from Lynn and Matt about what a reasonably accurate, I guess, is the best way to phrase it, fund balance is, and discuss the 1%, and or whether Carol has mentioned have a separate fund, so that if we do end up in one of those dips, we'll have this money to pay for it. And the next regular meeting in July is what, Trish, do you have the date?
July 25th.
25th or 6th?
2/5, yes, ma'am.
Okay. July 25th, but we will have a meeting before that, either May 30th or 31st. And
Yes, ma'am.
that will be with the Board Insurance Committee.
Yes, it will be a joint meeting.
Okay, Trish?
I just wanted to reemphasize that the district office has moved. We sent out several communications, but just wanted to reiterate it on public comment for my staff report. We are listed at 202 Route Iberville. We are on the second floor at the new facility. Point of contact information for the department is still the same. You can still phone call, and emails have not changed. It's just our location, our physical location now. Ms. Nancy had asked me to remind everyone that based on the approvals of the bylaws for the March meeting, we have added them to the LPSS Insurance and Benefits website. If you just go to our website, choose the little plus sign that says ERIAC, which is the acronym for the committee. They're listed there. You can see the bylaws at the top with the names of the members, the volunteers.
Ms. Leva, I just go back, Route Iberville, if anyone is unfamiliar, it is off of Collie Sloan. when you leave, going back down College Saloon, it is off of South College Extension. It is across from Lafayette Eye Center. So just as a perspective of where the new building is, it is literally less than 5 minutes from here. So if anyone was wondering where that was in Lafayette, it's right there off of South College Extension.
And they have good ice.
They do have good eyes. I mentioned that earlier. Okay, so we do have a Humana informational event. We have one on May 1st, Monday, at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. It will be held here at 113 Chaplin Drive. We're not equipped right now for the large meetings at the new facility, so everything will be here still at Chaplin. We've tried to overemphasize that with our communications. We don't want individuals going to the wrong location and then going, oh no, I've gone to the wrong location. So it's still the same process that we've been doing for the last few events. We do require pre-registration. That way we don't break any regulations with having as many people as we can within a facility. Ms. Ashley had sent out the communication, a J-call message and an email, just asking members if they wanted to sign up to go ahead and do so. They can either do so off the QR code or they can call. Phone numbers were listed on the informational that we sent out via the Blackboard message. And then last but not least, I just wanted to reiterate, there is a proposal for a 4% premium increase based on board approval at the May 10th budget board meeting. Everything would take effect July 1st. That would include the prescription cost savings initiative that we have on the budget, and that would also be the 4% premium increase. I've sent out communications to active members and retirees. We're going to remind employees again, we've got a May newsletter, we've got a June newsletter. I'm also going to add perhaps some additional pieces of information with regard to the cost savings initiative to get people in the know with regard to it. That way they're not surprised by the July 1st and the changes that will be occurring. So just wanted to reiterate that. Be on the lookout for additional communications from the department.
When we sent out when Tricia's department did an excellent job on the flyer that went out to our employees, but we focused on just the fact that it was the increase in the changes. We did not embed it in the newsletter. We focused just on that so everyone would see that piece, and then she would tag it in the newsletter, but we wanted to singly put that piece out so nobody was caught off guard.
And I think Trish is right to remind everybody in June
Yes.
because people will forget and get the check. And I want to compliment this committee because none of that would be possible. When you think back, those of us who've been around here a long time, when there were 4 or 5 people in here and no agenda, and it was, 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have any way to contact one retired. We didn't know who they were. I mean, much less those with email and those, that you could call on the telephone. And so all that has evolved because the communication has improved to such an extent that we can get the information out and not worry about missing people and people who don't have computers. And so I think we've come a long way in that communication regard. So my thanks to everybody because I think the employees are the ones who benefit from that.
We have the data, we could communicate, but it's snail mail. Now we've got a more rapid response. We've got options under email if the member has email, and we're also doing phone calls for those members that don't have a phone or don't have an email rather. But no, my hope is that they enjoy the immediate communications just like the active members get it versus having to wait for a long time and then being disconnected from everything.
And mail not getting lost and people not getting informed.
Yep.
And then we get phone calls because they think they were intentionally left out. And so I think I know it cost us some money, but I think it was a good investment overall.
No, I agree.
Yeah, you talked about email. When is it expected that everybody will move completely out of the building?
So we actually have only 5 people left in this facility that will be moving to the Route Aberville, and it is the accountability office, but of course they're in the middle of testing, so it was unfair to ask them to move in the middle of testing week. And then we've sold, of course, DCC to LCG, and so we will be doing federal programs and early childhood, and ESL is moving to the 207 Town Center. And so our goal is by July 1, I think, is that everyone except for the warehouse would be off this site and off of the BCC site.
Is it correct though that we're paying rent on this building?
Matt?
Yes, we sold this building to the airport, so we're paying rent on this building, so we want to try to, we were also required to remove the asbestos that's in this building, so that will happen relatively as quickly as possible to turn the keys over to them.
Just out of curiosity, what's the rent?
Really,
We can let you know.
Well, Matt, you know you know what
Yeah.
the rent
Well,
is.
it changes, I think, over when you
That and
go
a
through your
gazillion other
portions. Yeah.
That's
So
every
Jennifer, do we still have, or Matt, do we still have that building on Johnston where special ed was?
That's where we're putting federal programs is using in there.
Oh, that and early
Federal
childhood.
early childhood
Gotcha.
and then ESL, because there's a bus stop right there.
Okay, I
So
got
it's
you.
great for the
I
in
just
and
didn't
out
know
for
if we
that
still
conflict.
own that building,
But we
but we
do.
do.
So we
Okay,
were able to move special ed on the same floor as academics, so we are celebrating.
okay.
Where's the warehouse gonna be, or is it staying?
Still working on that.
Okay.
Anything else? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
No, wait, I have one, I just have a thing about this, I'm still stewing in my mind about OPEB. I understand that, I understand that the board paid for it. And Jennifer said earlier that we had already discussed this at the last meeting, well, honey, you could have we discussed it buku times in the
Oh, I
past.
just meant the total amount.
And you could have discussed it multitude of times in the future, because I know how this happens, is that, that's true, the general fund pays for it, but at the cost of what else in insurance? Because there's some things that could be picked up from the general fund that's in insurance, salaries and so on and so forth, that could be paid with that. And with the money that we have put in that, because it's millions and millions of dollars, and I understand, and then if it was like the vast majority of parishes participate, I mean, I understand that too, but there's just a handful of them. So, and there's not a person in this room, or basically probably in the system, that will ever benefit from that. So it's, I don't know, but the money that the board is paying for it, could some of that money that's given to that could certainly be utilized, we're talking about increases in premiums and so on. Maybe some of that could have been eliminated because of that, but I'm okay.
Thank you. We're gonna disagree on that, but.
And doesn't bother me, come on down.
Thank you, Pam.
We have a, Brunel, you through?
Well, it's already adjourned, so.
Did we have? I just wanted to. So, motion by Don, second by
You get the gas,
Carol. All those in favor? Opposed? See y'all in May.
Miss Kate, I have a question.